This is the McLaren 570S, and it may be the baby of the range, but it is a massive car from McLaren, hoping to double the company's output by 2017 and introducing a third tier to the model range. Now, if McLaren found facing down Ferrari a tough challenge, it's now opening itself up to a whole new level of competition from Porsche, Audi, Aston Martin, Mercedes and many more besides. And when the £126,000 540c version launches early next year, McLaren ownership will be more attainable than ever before. Put simply, this car could make or break the company. So, given that the 570S has a similar carbon fibre monocell chassis and twin-turbo 3.8 litre V8 engine to the 650S, the inevitable question is, where has McLaren saved the money? Well, you don't get some of the clever technology from the 650 range like the proactive chassis control or the active aero, but we've still got 570 horsepower, 0 to 60 in 3.2 seconds and a top speed of 204 miles an hour. So it doesn't really feel like you're losing out on that much, does it? More than just bragging rights with that carbon fibre chassis too. It weighs just 1,440 kilos, which is 155 kilos less than an Audi R8, 164 kilos less than a 911 Turbo, and it matches both of them on price as well. The interior is maybe a bit more normal than the 650S, but it's still very McLaren, which is a good thing. But really, we need to get it to a track, don't we? Right, we said we were going to a circuit, and here we are at Portimao. Now, usefully, not so long ago we were here driving one of the McLaren 570S's key rivals, the Audi R8, on exactly the same circuit. Do they handle it any differently? Well, yes. The McLaren is a lot lighter, over 100 kilos lighter in fact, and you straight away feel this with renewed agility, particularly through this opening complex. The steering is actually a little bit heavier but has a lot more feel than the Audis. As we approach this big stop into the hairpin, you can see that the McLaren is actually moving around a fair bit. This is unlike the 650S and the other cars in the range which have the big air brake that comes out the back. No aero on this car, remember, so it's a little bit more, as McLaren likes to put it, communicative. Now, the engine is just mighty. Here, as we brake into this fast right-hander, you can just balance it in a quite high gear and let the turbocharged torque pull you round. In the R8, you'd have been having to shift down a couple of gears to get the revs up on that normally aspirated engine. Great stability through this section. McLaren says the 570S isn't actually a track car, but to be honest, it handles this kind of driving very nicely indeed. The Corsa tyres are really, really impressive, as we found on other McLarens like the 650S. They handle this kind of abuse really well, but they work on the road too. Through here, again, loads and loads of feedback through the steering. There's just a really nice chuckable feel to the car. You feel the stiffness of the chassis. That permits the dampers to work really well. And in the harshest of the track modes here, you can see it will move around a little bit, but it's got a nice soft edge to the limit, so you don't feel scared it's not going to bite you. It's a lot more approachable than cars like the 675 LT, but then it's meant to be, because this is a more mainstream car, relatively speaking. Through this final corner, again, you feel a lack of downforce compared to the 650S and the LT, but it's still a blindingly fast car and huge amounts of fun. Now, we should try it on the road too, shouldn't we? So, we've driven the 570S on the track. But now we are where McLaren says this car is intended to work best, on the road, on a nice twisty bit of Portuguese back road. And what's it like? Well, pretty rapid. It doesn't feel quite as bonkers fast as the 650S, but 570 horsepower is plenty to be going on with. Thank you very much. How does it compare with the rivals? Well, it's got a lot more instant punch than the Audi R8, but I think if you were test driving them back to back, you would think that the Audi sounded a lot nicer and had a lot more character from its normally aspirated engine. There's no escaping that. This V8 is a little bit flat sounding, but there are advantages. The lack of weight compared with the Audi, 150 kilos, really shows. This kind of feels like a very grown-up Lotus Elise, which is no surprise because one of the senior development engineers used to work at Lotus. It just feels a bit more engaged. Wow! And those turbos spool up. It just feels really exciting. You get that rush of boost. There's no real lag, but just wham! There we go. I like it. So that's our first taste of the McLaren 570S. Now, we started this by saying it's a very big car for McLaren, and so it proves. The big question was, could it put enough ground between this and the 650S? I think they've managed that. That's no small feat given how much they share under the skin. But in order to prevent owners of those Super Series cars feeling like they've been ripped off, and also to give buyers of these cars something to aspire to, they've managed to just put a bit of a gap between them with the technology. I also think that it feels very straightforward compared with the competition. I like that. There's a kind of honesty about it. It doesn't need to hide behind fancy differentials, 8 gazillion modes for the steering, four-wheel drive or anything like that. At heart, it's quite a simple car and it just delivers on feedback. And I think that's a very British way of doing sports cars. Good luck to them.